Oh boy, my favorite show. Boring. We need to be mad. We need to be angry. We're thinking too much around here, guys. How dare you? That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh my god, dude. That's so big, dude. We gotta have a better ground game to overpower the corporate media structure and the propaganda. I'm right on the polling. I'm right on that. That's undisputed in my mind. That's undisputed in my mind. Politics is more complicated than that. Waging political capital in an effective way. Boring. Politics is more complicated than that. That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh boy, my favorite show. Boring. We need to be mad. We need to be angry. We're thinking too much around here, guys. How dare you? That is so cool. That is so fun. Oh my god, dude. That's so big, dude. We gotta have a better ground game to overpower the corporate media structure and the propaganda. Look at that cat. I'm right on the polling. Robert, thank you so much for becoming a support tier.
Right
Thank you.
That's undisputed.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much.
That's
Thank you.
undisputed in my mind.
Okay. 1 second. Politics is more complicated than that. Waging political capital in an effective way.
How long will her term be?
Boring. Politics is more complicated than that. The House. The big issue is incumbency. It's difficult to beat an incumbent. But like Fartwind said, you need to keep on going back at it and rallying more support every single time. Like Bernie did, like Cory Bush did. Cory Bush had to lose and come back to get the same seat. Uh-oh. I had to make a video on this. And also, there's a couple other things happening that I want to make a video about. So, for example, Newt Gingrich went on Fox News to talk about the Great Replacement theory. Candace Owens, I'm not going to make a video about this, but I guess I will review my Twitter to start streams or whatever. There are more COVID variants popping up. There is the Delta Plus variant. There's the Lambda. I don't even know. But it's resistant to the new vaccines, and she spreads so much fake news and disinformation and lies. Like, she spreads so much. I mean, even if social media companies were governed in a different way, I don't think she should be allowed to do this. Like, these are just categorically wrong. There's a reason Florida has 23% of the country's hospitalizations. People don't realize, like, the capacity of emergency care centers and everything. By the way, 0.2% of people is a lot of freaking people if the entire country gets COVID. But even without that, if you're old, your percentage to die is higher. But if you don't die, what is close to dying? How does it feel to be close to death? If a bunch of kids that are not vaccinated get sick, how many of them have parents that can afford to take a week off of work to take care of their sick kid who has COVID? How many people in America have great health insurance that's not going to put them in debt if they get COVID in a way that they need to stay in the hospital? Hospital bills are freaking crazy if you need to stay overnight. But people like Candace Owens are literally getting hundreds killed. And I don't know. I'm pretty confident in my position that banning her is okay. At this point, purposeful disinformation. She's a grifter. She lies purposely. She's a public figure. She does it 500 times per day. Socialist MMA. The first ever time he debated Vosh was hilarious, but Nina Turner lost because of the weakness of the squad. It turned a lot of people off from the left, so they didn't support her. This is why politicians not supporting their base has dire consequences. Yes. Yes. This is why Nina Turner lost. The same person said that Vosh's answer about reparations is bad. I'm just going through the tweets right now. But do you know how everybody has the understanding that, you know, if you lock up more poor people from inner cities, or if you have a policy that hurts poor people from inner cities, because mostly black people live in the inner cities because of systemic racism, that this policy focused on poor people from the inner cities would be a racist policy as a result? In the same way that that's a racist policy, if you give money to people who are poor from the inner cities, you're going to hit more black people. You're going to be giving more money. You're going to be disproportionately helping poor black people because more poor black people live in the inner cities because of things like redlining. So it's not direct reparations, but it is a more politically viable path to healing systemic issues. And why not throw some money to poor white communities in rural America? Why not throw some money? Maybe spend money on integration with public housing and everything and other programs. And yeah, that's basically all for that. I guess I better get to the... There I am. Better get to the Kyle Kulinski portion. I said, does anybody have the total money with the PAC money plus money raised? Nina still had more money. I think it was 6.5 million in total for Nina, and then 5.5 million for her opponent. Or yeah, her opponent had $1.3 million less overall with PACs and donations. But anyway, to get to the Kyle. So I gave my take on why Nina Turner lost. And in reality, all the people saying this is why Nina lost or this is why Nina lost, it's all recommendations. We can't really pinpoint one area on which to blame for her loss in totality. We should be looking at examples like Bernie Sanders, like Cory Bush. Progressives need to build a lot of grassroots support. It's not going to take one election with tons of money from across the country to win a really tight primary. It's going to take Nina Turner running again and again and again, which is why it scares me to see her mentality after her current loss, blaming everything on a big conspiracy theory, not taking anything into account, how she could have ran her campaign better. I just don't like seeing that from her. What's up, everybody? Oh, yeah, when Chomsky told the Vanguard that we're not children. Kyle's takes triggered you. Okay, so basically, Nina Turner is going to have to keep on running, and she needs to keep a good head on her shoulders. She can't go too conspiratorial. She can't burn bridges. She can't act immature about this loss. She needs to learn from this experience and not blame everything on some type of huge conspiracy. And I hope Kyle Kulinski doesn't feed into the conspiracies that we are currently hearing. When it comes to total money spent on this election, in this primary election, Nina Turner, even with all of the PAC money that Chantel Brown got, still had access to 1.3 million more dollars. So you can say small dollar donations are better than big dollar donations from bigger groups, but the reality is Nina Turner didn't lose because of money in politics or anything like that. You can say even, I'm gonna correct myself while watching this. Her opposition did lie about Nina Turner with their mailers, saying that she doesn't support universal health care or $50 minimum wage or a couple of other things. But it's politics. That is par for the course. That's what happens during elections. We need to learn how to be better campaigners, how to play to partisan politics a little bit. You don't have to be freaking Democratic yes people, but you should know that a lot of Democratic voters in primaries are going to want to vote for people that can work within the Democratic Party. No matter how close your local ties are to where you're running, it's going to be difficult if you call Joe Biden a piece of poop or a full or a half plate of poop as he's running against Donald Trump. It's going to be a difficult thing to do. So I'm going to go through this, Kyle Kulinski.
Lost her
Oh,
race against
this is
Chantel
quiet.
Brown. Nina Turner lost her race against Chantel Brown in Ohio's 11th district. The reason why she lost is very simple. There was a colossal infusion of corporate money at the end of the campaign, and it buried her. It buried her.
So you can say that all the money at the end buried her, but to act like there's a conspiracy or something, or that she got drowned out in money simply isn't true. A lot of negative advertising at the very end of the campaign cycle with a good message, or not a good message, but a strong negative ad like the Joe Biden comment was, that can really hurt a candidate. People vote off of negative advertising more likely than they will vote off of like positive advertising. So if you spend months and months building up a positive image of yourself, that can all be destroyed with one really good negative ad campaign. That's a bad strategy thing on Nina Turner's behalf.
What that money was able to buy in the final stretch of the campaign was well-timed lies. That's what that money bought. So let me give you just a little sampling of what Nina's team was dealing with in the home stretch of this campaign. So there's an article in The Intercept titled, "In the Race Against Nina Turner, GOP Donors Fund Chantel Brown." GOP donors. With 1 week left in the Ohio primary, Republican donors have picked their Democrat and the pro-Israel PAC supporting her. So some Republican donors hopped in super late, but you also had some big PACs jump in well before the final week. It was probably in the last month or two. So here's the biggest thing that led to Nina's defeat.
Yeah, that is very true. Being very linked to Jill Stein and other third-party movements, you have zero friends within the party that you're trying to run for them. Being linked to the People's Party or whatever, being linked to being so critical of Joe Biden. She did say, I'm not going to help Joe Biden win. I might vote for him because he's not as bad, but he's still evil. That's what she said. And if you believe that, fine. But I'd rather her be a little bit different in her rhetoric, because maybe she can actually get elected and help people then.
Democratic majority for Israel, a hybrid PAC, super PAC that has spent $1.2 million on ads supporting Brown and opposing Turner in the election, also had a slew of donors who have made ample donations to Republican candidates and causes. So they hopped in and spent $1.2 million on ads. They say supporting Brown and opposing Turner, but it was mostly opposing Nina Turner. So I'll get to the stuff that money bought, but let me paint the picture for you a little more when it comes to the dollar figures that we're talking about. Daniel Marin says, with an update from Dem Action PAC, the pro-Turner super PAC, the totals for either side are either pro-Turner or anti-Brown, 904,000. Either pro-Brown or anti-Turner, about 2.7 million. So, you do the math on that. That is a huge difference. And by the way, with Nina, it was more spread out over time for the entire campaign. With Chantel Brown, it was focused towards the end of the campaign. She was lagging way early on, and then Hillary Clinton jumped in, a bunch of corporate Democrats jumped in.
You can use that as a signifier that Chantel Brown had more establishment support. The majority of the Democratic Party is centrist, especially leadership. We know this from many different things. Good morning, cat. My cat's waking up. What was I talking about? I looked at my cat and totally forgot. Oh yeah, but Nina Turner had more overall money in general. So, I mean...
And Jim Clyburn jumped in. Big corporate money jumped in. Republican money jumped in at the end. And they did a well-timed surge, and they did vicious lying attack ads, again, that we're going to get to. So the other thing you could see there is Third Way shells out another $255,000 on digital ads opposing Nina Turner in the Ohio 11 special, bringing their total investment to $505,000. So Third Way, the corporate Democrat group, was spending $500,000 against Nina Turner towards the end of the campaign. The total outside spending...
By the way, I'm gonna be nitpicky. The tribalism that comes with calling Democrats you don't like corporate Democrats hurts your chances in elections. It hurts your chances because a lot of Democratic voters are gonna like those politicians that you label as corporate Democrats. I mean, dude, I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. You can't let your emotions flow 24/7. But bro, your emotions don't matter. Helping people does. Like Cori Bush had to keep on learning and growing as she ran and as she worked in politics. Bernie Sanders had to keep growing and learning as he lost multiple times, and he kept coming back in politics until he figured out a way to do it. Everybody's gonna have a different path, but you got to find a way to get stuff done and win. And it's not going to come if you're just arrogant about it, and if you're nihilistic about it, and if you just give up at every point of adversity. Like, we know money's going to be spent from outside groups against progressives every single time we run in a race. It's like, oh, it happened again. I'm so surprised. Dude, this is politics. This is the playing field. We know what's happening already. We know what this is. We know what it takes. There's one more thing I wanted to say, but I forget for this moment.
In the Nina Turner Chantel Brown dust-up has galloped past 3.5 million. All right, some more. Here's the chart that I want to show you guys. Check out the bag dropping. Ahead of tomorrow's Ohio 11th primary. DMFI
Show us the full thing.
has spent more opposing Nina Turner than nearly all other outside spending combined. Look at that chart. So DMFI PAC, so that's the Israeli PAC, they're blowing everybody else out of the water, and most of those ads are anti-Nina Turner negative ads, not really pro-Chantel Brown ads. So they just drowned everybody out and blanketed the airwaves and carpet bombed the people of Ohio's 11th district with flat-out lies about Nina Turner. So, again, just to give you a taste of what we were dealing with in the home stretch of this election, you have this. So here's some mailers that went out. Raise the minimum wage. They say Nina Turner's against it. Universal health care. They say Nina Turner's against it. Immigration reform. They say Nina Turner's against it.
Now, what they did here that makes it a lie, but also not a lie, but also still a lie, is they took her saying, I'm not voting for the Democratic platform, which, by the way, optically bad. I'm voting hell no on the DNC platform. Add more context to that tweet, maybe. I know that's really nitpicky, but they did end up using it. The reason they said she doesn't support minimum wage or universal health care or immigration reform is because the Democratic platform ideally has a public option, which technically, if they did it as written, would do universal coverage, which I don't believe it would ever work that way, but it would do universal coverage. So she voted no on the platform. Therefore, she said no to universal health care. There was immigration reform on the platform. She said no to the platform, so she said no to immigration reform. And, on and on and on. Raising the minimum wage was on the platform. She said no, that's not, the platform isn't good for me. So she said no to the minimum wage increase. So that's what they did. Is it lying? Is it being dishonest? Yes. But is it completely untrue? Technically, no. Is it dirty politics? Yeah, it is. Politics is dirty. That's what it is. You have to be able to beat stuff like this. Like, Bernie Sanders had much worse going. Joe Biden had worse going against them in negative advertising than Nina Turner does on this flyer here. Ron, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Why is Kyle mad that Brown's PACs came in late with the money? Isn't that a good strategy that we can adopt in the future? That is something to think about. It is pretty ineffective to spend your money over a long period of time. I know what the goal is. They're trying to build up their grassroots support, so it's going to be there for the entire duration, but voters don't act like that. And we heard this a lot during every election. Elections are often decided by people who don't pay that much attention to politics, people that are going to show up at the final moment to cast their ballot, people who may be dissuaded by the final advertisement they see before they go to the ballot box. This is something we talk about in political science that should be known by these campaigns, but progressives have this one strategy nailed in their head constantly, repeatedly pounded in their skulls or whatever. We need to get there early, and we need to set up a ground game grassroots support base. But voters, we have to pay attention to how they react and how they operate and how they actually vote.
So they're just flat out lying about her. They're lying about her because she criticized the Democratic platform, because she said it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't give us Medicare for all. It doesn't give us.
Well, the thing is, Jojo, the reason I say that is because I don't see us ever running a race. Because why would I mean? Every race that progressives would need to win is going to be against the big money. If we say we are not going to take PAC money and then our opponent does, we know that's going to happen already. So I don't know why people complain about it so much as if it's a big surprise. We should point it out. We should say we shouldn't have like outside groups. It should be more transparent. Maybe we should have publicly funded elections. But to come up after every single election cycle and our only complaint is we did nothing wrong, but that dark corporate money swooped in yet again. We never expected it. Like, dude, I'm not gonna keep on using that as a crutch anymore.
Universal health care. And we went through the list of the other things that it didn't do. I mean, there were a number of things that were layups that Democrats left out of their platform, including, by the way, human rights for Palestinians, a condemnation of illegal settlements, conditioning the money to Israel to say, hey, you guys got to abide by international law or else you're not going to get a subsidy from us and you're not going to get weapons deals from us. Nina took a stand and
Kyle was saying that Bernie should go in hard against Biden. Now he's mad that Brown went hard against Nina. I think he would say that Brown's being dishonest, and he'll say, like, there is enough bad things there completely truthfully about Brown that you don't need to twist the narrative at all, like they did in that flyer that I showed.
And said this doesn't have universal health care, Medicare for all. This doesn't have protections for Palestinians. So I'm against it from the left. So they just come out, lie about it, and say she's against raising the minimum wage, even though she was the one who introduced that, by the way. And she's against universal health care and she's against immigration reform. Nonsense. Nonsense.
One question to consider. Did voting no for the Democratic platform help anybody in any way? Did it get us any more votes? Did it get anybody healthcare or a higher minimum? It could have got people a higher minimum wage. It can still possibly. Federal workers, Biden's going to pay them $15 an hour. That's a good thing. Immigration reform is a pretty good thing compared to what Republicans want to do, even if it's not perfect. But did Nina Turner get anything for anybody by not voting for the Democratic platform? So by saying I don't stand with the Democratic Party, even with the platform that I influenced, what did Nina do? Did it serve any function, or was it just like a virtue signal morality claim? Or like, was it supposed to be like, oh, I'm anti-establishment, but I'm going to run as a Democrat next election cycle, and hopefully Democratic voters who are partisan vote for me?
Sense. So these are lies. These are lies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And now let me show you one of the ads that was just absolutely pounding Nina in the final month or so of this campaign.
The country is more polarized than ever, and Nina Turner is no help. Unify Democrats? Turner said no. Support Clinton over Trump?
She did say no.
Not Nina Turner.
She did do this. She wanted to. She was always tied to Jill Stein. She didn't want to support Clinton in any way whatsoever.
Help Biden defeat Trump? Turner refused.
I mean, to be fair, I did not. I was 16 though. I was a child.
Instead,
16.
Turner said voting for Biden was like
She did
eating.
say this.
Turner even voted no on the entire Democratic platform, rejecting Biden's plan to build on Obamacare. Nina Turner for Congress?
She did reject Biden's plan to build on Obamacare. She did do all of those. That's not dishonest whatsoever. I mean, it was presented. It's politics. It was presented in a negative way. Of course, they're going to use that against her. Joe Biden, Barack Obama's vice president, wants to expand on the Affordable Care. Wants to expand on Obamacare, and Nina Turner said no. That's not good enough. And, oh my God, I want universal health care. I am very passionate about how much I hate healthcare in America, as it currently is, ran by debt and for-profit industries. But, don't walk up to a person that currently doesn't have health insurance and say Democrats are not good enough. Don't ever do that. Because if their plans went through 100% and, dude... There's so many people who got healthcare because of Obamacare. Even with this weird facilitated private market thing, this subsidized private market that Obamacare set up, but with expanded Medicaid and pushing for a public option, so many more people have health insurance now. It's not even debatable. Like, you take what you can get as a voter. Like, I got healthcare from Obamacare. I want to keep, like, dude, I don't know.
No thanks. The MFI PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You gotta meet people where they're at.
every single piece of that is incredibly misleading, or it's a lie. So, just to give one example here, the voting for Biden's like eating a bowl of shit comment in its
Yeah, you should run on better policies, yes, but she wasn't running for anything. She was voting for a Democratic platform at that point. Saying I'm not going to push for healthcare for more people because everybody's not going to get it isn't really a winning strategy, especially when a lot of people got helped by Obamacare.
full context, what she says is Donald Trump is a full bowl of shit and Joe Biden is a half bowl of shit.
Yeah,
and,
but she still said Joe Biden is shit. Like eating shit.
Sure, if you're told, would you rather eat the full bowl of shit or the half bowl of shit? Of course, you're going to take the half bowl over the full bowl.
And he thinks
but
this
wouldn't it be
makes
nicer
sense.
if we didn't have to eat a bowl of shit.
But talk to a regular voter.
Completely reasonable comment, especially given the facts of Joe Biden's record. And this is what Nina Turner points out all the time. He voted for the Patriot Act, which is illegal, unconstitutional.
So did, like, everybody. Like,
spying on all Americans. He voted for
except
that.
a couple.
He voted for the Iraq War, which led to
so did like everybody, except a couple.
hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians dying. He voted for various outsourcing deals that gutted
So did like everybody. It's still bad, but
America's middle class, including the black population in this country, got decimated by a lot of our trade deals. He supported the crime bill and wrote part of the crime bill, I believe, where,
so did, the black community. 60% of black people were for that crime bill, by the way.
it was far too punitive. And he was a drug warrior. And he locked up many young minorities who shouldn't have been locked up. It cracked down more on these
Joe Biden
victimless
did
crimes.
that single-handedly.
That's a terrible idea. He supported and maybe even wrote part of the bankruptcy bill, which made it so that students couldn't file for bankruptcy on their student loan debt, so they're just stuck with it forever. The list goes on of how his voting record is that of a moderate Republican. And so Nina Turner comes along and says, I don't want a full Republican or a half Republican. I don't want a 100% Republican or a diet Republican. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a Democrat? Wouldn't it be nice if we had somebody who represented the Democratic wing of...
It's a little weird to me, too, when Kyle Kulinski talks about the student debt stuff, because he's somebody who, hates Elizabeth Warren because of all the primary stuff, but she probably has done the most when it comes to freeing up the financial sector of our country and caring about doing that. And she has gotten the closest to actual... and she actually has gotten financial reform. So it's weird to me why he would focus on those exact points, but he's not supporting every politician who is conducive in fixing those problems. Politicians are tools, whether you like them or not. It's just weird how he kind of I don't know. I feel like you should be supporting all the people doing work in the opposite direction, but he doesn't. He only supports the people who he is a real big fan of.
the Democratic...
By the way, Crystal, when she interviewed Bernie, Bernie's team made sure Kyle wasn't there. I'm gonna do a video on that after this one. But oh my god, wait to see how bad Kyle copes, because Bernie's campaign doesn't want to be associated with or Bernie's team and Bernie doesn't want to be associated with Kyle Kulinski.
Party. That was her argument. And they take it out of context and they spin it to try to make it seem like she's on the side of Republicans. And again, a lot of the stuff they say is just lie. Oh, she doesn't want to build on Obamacare. The definition of building on Obamacare would be to go from Obamacare to a public option to eventually Medicare for all. That's exactly what Nina Turner wants to do.
She wasn't for the public option. She did a lot of interviews on MSNBC and CNN about that. She didn't want to go to that step. She wasn't okay with it. Yeah.
But they spin it and they twist it. And so when that ad runs day after day after day after day after day towards the end of this campaign, all of the late breakers went to Chantel Brown. And by the way,
the late breakers, maybe Nina Turner should have saved some money so she could run some refuting advertising.
Now, so this isn't set in stone, but some of the preliminary data is that in the more white precincts, they showed up strong for Chantel Brown. It looked like the black vote was roughly split. And then in the white precincts...
By the way, we don't have any solid data on this. This was spread around Twitter. The data that I saw about the thing about all the white people voting for Chantel Brown, I haven't really seen much what's that word called? Proof of that. Unless if anybody has any links to that, please send it to me so I can inform myself.
They came out for Chantel Brown.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So this is, yet again, the suburbs strikes back.
That the suburbs would go for the more centrist candidate. I wouldn't be surprised about that.
I mean, listen, not going to sugarcoat it, y'all. It's devastating. It's devastating. So what do we take away from this? Because Nina Turner had like a...
And by the way, I'm being really critical right now because I care. It's like if you have a kid or something, you want that kid to be great. It's tough love, dude. There are ways we can improve, and we need to really talk about those areas and improve on them.
Point lead at one point, or 30 or 40 point lead at one point, and it was only like 2 or 3 months ago.
Nina had a 30 or 40 point lead like 5 months before the primary. For a primary of this size, and knowing how polling has been, you shouldn't pay attention to any polls outside of a couple weeks. Polls get more and more accurate as you get closer to the actual race, and all fundraising money comes in. You can look at this for any election. Looking at Nina Turner up by 40 points, 6 months ago was like looking at Bernie Sanders in first place before Joe Biden jumped in the race in 20 what year? What year is it? 2020.
Ago that was the case. The big takeaway, and this isn't going to be earth-shattering breaking news to anybody, but the big takeaway is that money wins elections. Big money wins elections. So, I mean, the number one takeaway should be, if you're not talking about campaign finance reform, you're not serious. Because if Shontel Brown didn't have all of this Republican money, big oil money, multinational corporate money, corporate Democrat money, pro-Israel money, if she didn't have all that come in at the last minute in the final month or two.
I mean, sure, if Nina Turner would have outspent her literally 4-1, she probably would have lost. I wouldn't disagree with that. One question I have for anybody who watches, maybe if somebody lives around the area, if you watch MSNBC or CNN, I don't watch any mainstream news. I don't really watch TV in general. But if anybody knows what their media presence was like, does anybody know? Did Nina Turner go on MSNBC and CNN as much as Shontel Brown went on those websites or on those television networks? I'd be interested to know about that, and also how positively or negatively did they cover that race, if they did, because there's been a lot of other stuff in the news.
She would have lost by 15 or 30 points. No doubt about it. Not a question. Not a question. So that's the big takeaway, is that kind of corrupt buying of an election, it should...
Ron said, there will be no exit polls of this race. No one is going to pay for exit polls in a plus 30 Dem district. There is no way to know if white people swung. So did Brianna Joy Gray put that on Twitter for like no reason? Like she just made it up? She got mad and made up a fake news story about it? Roberto said, I feel Bernie is trying to get in good with the Biden admin, but only to get as much as he can out of it. So the big thing that I see right now, I don't know if you saw my tweet about it or my video, Roberto, but what Bernie is doing right now is focusing 100% on the infrastructure. The bipartisan deal is whatever, but the budget reconciliation one is the big move right now. And Bernie Sanders isn't going hard on every issue, because that's more of what an activist does. When you're trying to get something done in politics, you usually have to hyper-focus on one area. And Bernie needs to have the goodwill of the Democratic Party to get what he wants through in this budget reconciliation bill, the $3.5 trillion one. If he pisses off even Joe Manchin, for example, Bernie can't go through West Virginia calling Joe Manchin an idiot, because Joe Manchin is needed to get this budget reconciliation through. So in these areas, relationships in politics do matter more than like big money connections at that point. Bernie needs to make sure that he has everything in line as the budget chairman, so he can get some progressive priorities passed in government right now, in which Republicans are stalling our Senate.
Be illegal. It should absolutely be illegal. And unfortunately, we live in a country where the Supreme Court, from the late 1970s until today, in a variety of decisions, they've basically decided money equals free speech. So it is perfectly legal for corruption to happen in this country, for legalized bribery to happen in this country. And all these special interests basically bought Shontel Brown the seat. And now, by the way, Shontel Brown, when she gets to Washington, that's exactly who she's going to represent. In her speech, she thanked my Israeli brothers and sisters or something along those lines. And she was saying that particularly because of the Israeli PAC.
I never said don't criticize. I have never said that in my life. I said don't be dumb about your criticizing people. Don't call Joe Biden an evil, ugly, corrupt, devil-worshipping, blood-sucking, Republican, far-right war criminal. Like, whatever. Don't call Joe Biden that. Make good faith criticisms of Joe Biden to Democratic voters. Say what we need to get done, and say these people are not getting it done, and hopefully we can vote for somebody else in the future that will push for these issues more. Right now, you don't have that much room to criticize. By the way, getting the Republican Party out of the picture as much as we can is a big deal too. But you don't have much room to criticize Joe Biden right now when he's dealing with COVID after Trump. There just isn't the political room to do that. It doesn't make any sense. It wouldn't work in any regard. Nobody's going to listen to you call Joe Biden a corrupt war criminal after Trump was just president. People just won't listen to it. You got to take what you can get, and you have to meet people where they are. You can't seem like fringe, socially awkward outsiders at the big party sitting in the corner yelling at people while everybody else is in the big dance and you refuse to join them because you want to be like morally righteous or whatever. I can get more done with my political strategy than like the gray zone Kyle Kulinskis will ever get done in their entire lives. There's a reason everybody that loses races and everybody that has a failing strategy hates everybody that becomes successful in helping people. So everybody, how is it that literally every Democratic, progressive, whatever politician that makes it into office and learns how government works, whether it's AOC, Cory Bush, Bernie Sanders, Montere Jones, no matter who it is, and Nina Turner would have gotten this treatment too. No matter who it is, as soon as these Democrats, these progressives, get into office, the Jimmy Dore types and Kyle Kulinski types hate them. Once they need to start working in real government where they can actually help people, that's when Kyle Kulinski hates them. Because there's a difference between political hobbyism and political reality. And there's a difference between even activism and hobbyism. This isn't activism. This is sitting in your chair, screaming at people actually doing things, telling them to get in the streets and fight for a general strike when you haven't left your freaking your house since Politicon.
That spent the most money, which bought her the seat. So now you're not going to have anybody who represents justice or peace in Israel-Palestine. You're going to have somebody who's incredibly biased and who will overlook wanton violations of international law and human rights. So, I mean, this is a real systemic problem that we're dealing with here. The issue of money in politics. So campaign finance reform needs to be top of the list. But there are other takeaways too. Like, for example, the left needs to get serious about institutions and small money contributions. Unfortunately, what happens is when the left creates institutions, they become the professional left, and then the professional left loses touch with what they're supposed to be. Like we just saw it happen with Our Revolution, where now they rebranded as like pragmatic progressives or some shit like that. The fuck is that? That means we've been in Washington too long, and we no longer believe in vision. We no longer believe that better things are possible. Now we want to split the difference and do what we think is possible within the context of Washington and how politics works now. That's a terrible idea. And so that means there is no institutional left. I mean, I saw it happen with my own two.
It's really funny. What I just said, Kyle confirmed. As soon as progressives get into office, they become the elite progressives. They no longer care about being good. They don't know what is real or what's fake. They don't know what's good or what's bad. They are now corrupted by the system. Bernie Sanders is lazy, stupid, or he simply doesn't care. Obviously, he is being co-opted right now by the system. There is nothing else. You know, if Kyle Kulinski was in Congress right now, he would simply make it happen. He would simply do Medicare for all. He would simply do it. All you got to do is fight. You got to grind. Grind set mentality. Be an alpha. Be a Sigma male. You got to be a Sigma male. If you're not a true Sigma male who like falls down the stairs to get down them quicker, like some people walk, some people try to like skip a step. Sigma males jump down the stairs. They just fall down because they know they'll get to the bottom quicker. Sigma males do like you got to be a Sigma male.
Two eyes with the group I co-founded, Justice Democrats. Are they fighting as hard as they should be fighting? No. Do they
The
have
group, I say this all the time, the group that Kyle Kulinski signal boosted. He had no part in the actual political organization.
wins every now and then? Absolutely. We're going to get to one in a little bit. Cory Bush just delivered on the eviction moratorium. Huge credit to her. But let's not kid ourselves. The institutional left.
Oh, yeah. Kyle Kulinski did activism by talking about it on his radio show twice and leaving the board before anybody even got elected. He left Justice Democrats before anybody even got elected because of like a falling out, a petty disagreement about like jank or something.
Watered down and becomes milquetoast the second it becomes institutional. So
That's
you need to do is find a way
activism, baby.
to create an institutional left that stays true to its principles and its founding. And so you need an institutional left, and you need.
I'm not an activist. And no matter what I do in politics, I'm not going to call myself an activist. I have too much respect for people who actually do activism to call myself an activist or call Kulinski an activist. If this is your standard for an activist, holy crap, that's pretty degrading to people who are actually out there demanding change. I'll tell you what.
Small money contributions that are serious and organized. Now, Nina Turner did okay in fundraising, but as I described, it was spread out over the entire campaign, and it turned out that was a very, very big strategic error with how they spent it. This is probably the only thing I would say that Nina Turner's people did wrong. Like, there's maybe one or two things they did wrong, and everything else they did right. And the fact of the matter is, what ended up happening with Chantel Brown, which I don't even think was necessarily on purpose, because nobody was paying attention to her early on, and she was a nobody, and she was polling at nothing. But what happened is they jumped in at the last minute. Hillary Clinton endorsed her. There was a slew of corporates that came out of the woodwork to support her, big money support her, and then it was very, very focused in the final stretch of the campaign where they did an ad blitz. And so all the late breakers went to Chantel Brown. Maybe there's something to be said about the wisdom of that, even though I think it was accidental for Chantel Brown, that really you should keep your powder dry until the final stretch of any election when it matters the most. Because towards the end, they were struggling a little bit. Nina Turner's people were struggling a lot more than Chantel Brown's people were because they were flush with big money. Now Nina Turner doesn't take big money, so she's at an institutional disadvantage. But maybe take some of those small dollar donations and make sure you have it for the most important period, which is just before the election. So I think that's an incredibly important takeaway that not many people are going to have in response to this. And then the other point is, listen, you have to fight fire with fire. You have to. So I would implement a rule of 2-to-1 on negative ads. For every negative ad that they run against you, you run 2 back against them.
Finally, Kyle Kulinski is speaking in a logical manner, learning from what happened, and using it to create a strategy that will better prepare us for the future. I love this section. After 13 minutes of rambling about dumb nonsense, he's finally getting to the meat of it. We should be learning from this.
Yeah. And it's a way to incentivize certain kinds.
Respect to Kyle Kulinski. I do think he is the best of all of these Brianna Joy Gray, Jimmy Dore types. Crystal Ball can be all right too. But I doubt Jimmy Dore is going to say anything even remotely close to what Kyle Kulinski is about to say.
And a campaign. Listen, and I'm like this in my personal life. I'm like this on the show. Everybody understands this. I'm a counterpuncher. I don't go on the offense. I don't throw the first punch. I'm a counterpuncher. The only time I'm going to come after somebody is if I feel like they come after me and it's unfair, and then I'm going to respond. So if somebody wants to have a campaign, focus on the issues. I'm 100%.
Hey, oh boy. This isn't limitless. When I say this, I don't mean for everything, but do what is going to win. All right. Don't go into a race. And you can have a lot of like principles on what you're going to do in a race. Like Bernie Sanders had a lot of principle about like negative ads and whatever. But don't be like Kyle Kulinski and be like, all right, guys, I'm a counterpuncher. I'm going to wait to be punched and then I'm going to punch back. Like you're going to get, I don't know. Do what is going to work. I don't know. Don't like be too tied to these weird, Rocky movie narratives or whatever. I don't know.
I'm not going to have a campaign focus on the issues because I think the issues, what we believe on the merits, it's strong enough on its own. So we don't need to go into the gutter. But if the other side crosses us and if they decide to go into the gutter, okay, you can play that game. And now I'm going to hit you twice as hard and twice as much. And so you incentivize a more pure campaign. But if they don't want to have a pure campaign and they want to get in the gutter, then I'm going to fucking beat you with that game too. So every time they run a negative ad or they lie, you run a negative ad. Now, thankfully, our negative ad can be truthful because there's enough there that you can attack them.
I'm trying to think of the strategy of that. If you wait until they go negative to go negative, I guess it depends where you're running. If you're running in a heavy suburb area, I don't even know. This is a difficult one.
And you win. So I would implement a rule like that. So they're running negative ads. They're smearing and lying Nina. Okay, well, to play at that game, I'm going to run ads all over the place about how Chantel Brown just funneled $17 million to her boyfriend because she's corrupt. There's 1,000 things about Chantel Brown that we can point out about how she's an insider and she's playing the game for her own narcissism and careerism. And she's just another politician who's going to keep the status quo going as people are suffering. And so, again, we don't need to lie. We can tell the truth. But I would have some vicious ads that go right for the jugular. So that's another thing I would do is I would make sure I fight fire with fire. I time the ads better. But listen, I don't want to be too critical of Nina Turner because here's the heartbreaking reality. She did nothing wrong. Maybe a couple minor tweaks would have helped her, but she did nothing wrong. Fact of the matter is this seat was bought by all of the late ad spending, by the millions and millions of dollars of a cash infusion that went to Chantel Brown to malign and smear and denigrate a working class hero like Nina Turner. So big money buys elections. That's the bottom line. That's the main takeaway. So even though this stings, even though this hurts, at least we have our answers. And at least we know that we need to adjust moving forward in some very specific ways. And then also, I just want to stress this point because the initial reaction...
The reason I am conflicted about what Kyle is saying here about going fully negative on every issue that you can, I don't know if all negative ads are equal. If you have, like I said before, a pretty partisan county or district, and you have a lot of people who are going to be friendly with the Democratic Party, going really negative against your opponent about like taking dark money from PACs or whatever, and also all of this other, Chantel Brown like funneled money to her boyfriend. She's being investigated for corruption. I don't know. I honestly don't know which works more. An attack ad like that or an attack ad showing Nina Turner calling Joe Biden a piece of shit. And she doesn't want to support him versus Trump, but she might vote. Like, I honestly don't know which one would work more in a Democratic primary.
It's perfectly understandable and perfectly reasonable. Everybody has this initial reaction when it happens. When you see something like this, you say, well, what the fuck is the point? Like, what the fuck is the point? Why are we wasting our time? You have to fight the urge to get nihilistic and complacent. You have to do it. Because guess what? That's exactly what they want. The establishment loves that. The establishment banks on that. They bank on what I like to call self-disenfranchisement, where people get so turned off by the system and so cynical about the system that they throw their hands up in the air and they say, fuck it, we're done here. We're done. We're not gonna participate in the system anymore. Well, you just handed them the biggest gift you could ever hand them. And what you need to do is try to tap in to that gear that only, a lot of the GOATs have, the greatest of all time have, where when the going gets tough, you're actually able to fight harder, to rededicate yourself, and to really put your nose to the grindstone and get to fucking work. That needs to be the reaction that you have. The reaction needs to be, oh, well, we're going to make for shit sure this never happens again. That has to be the reaction. Now, by the way, it is going to happen again. It absolutely is going to happen again. And,
Yes.
there are people who run for office 6, 7, 8 times before they get elected, but eventually you get elected. Cori Bush lost when she ran the first time. She may have even lost a second time. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But eventually she won. So you never give up and you fight on and you don't take no for an answer. I swear to God, guys, like 80% of it is just continuing to show up. 80% of it is continuing to show up. So you fight on and you don't give up. And listen, I just want to stress this too. I don't care how you get involved, just get involved. I don't care how. If you want to work on specific single issue advocacy, good on you. In fact, I think that's probably the most potent way to fight and the way to get the most change you can as fast as you can. If you want to be involved in organizing workers and unionization, love it. That's another great way to get immediate results, is to get involved in that kind of way.
Yeah, that's one point too. The demographics there weren't exactly the most progressive demographic. This message here is good for Nina Turner. This is a place to build on. Giving up is easy, but nothing ever comes without struggle. We dust ourselves off and get back in the ring. We keep on fighting. We keep on fighting. We are going to keep fighting for the working class. But she needs to learn from her past mistakes. I saw her, I don't know if it would be on here still, but I saw her retweeting Brianna Joy Gray and Jank. Did she delete the retweets or? Yeah, she deleted the retweets. I don't think I retweeted it myself, but she was really coping really hard, being really a really big sore loser about it, I guess, and having a really negative attitude. And that will do nothing but defeat you in the long run. From now on, Nina Turner needs to go with the Bernie Sanders strategy. Criticize the party while also keeping the party close enough to benefit from the party. Make connections where you can. Keep on being on the ground with the voters in your district, making connections there, stay within the community and all that stuff. That needs to be the goal. Just keep on building from this point forward. Being not like Kyle just said, being nihilistic about it is probably the worst thing you can possibly do at this point.
If you want to work for third parties, I don't think that's the most effective approach, but it doesn't matter if I don't think it's the most effective approach. At least you're doing something. And maybe we get to a point where there's enough of a coalition with other third parties where everybody can band together and really become a force of nature, and we can push the establishment in the same way that there were outside socialist and communist groups that were able to push FDR. So even though it's not my cup of tea in the sense that I think it's probably one of the least effective ways to get involved, that doesn't matter. I still support you doing it, and I want you to do it because getting involved in that way is better than doing nothing. And you want to build solidarity, and you want a coalition build. And however you want to get involved, you should get involved, but for the love of God, get involved. Because if you don't, well, then they're guaranteed to crush us. So, again, I know it hurts, but you have to keep everything in context and perspective. And I just want to say to everybody there are people who are blaming third parties for Nina's loss. I don't understand that argument at all. Or saying that third parties are happy with Nina losing. I don't think so. I think anybody who would be with the Green Party or whatever other third party would say, of course I prefer Nina Turner to Chantel Brown. So I don't understand that take. But I also don't understand the take of third party people saying, well, see, this is why you got to give up on the Democrats.
Third parties
don't
don't work.
If Nina Turner ran as a Green, or if Nina Turner ran as an independent,
What?
or if Nina Turner ran as somebody in the People's Party or some other socialist party or whatever, that she would have done better in the election? I don't want to be an asshole, but that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Instead of losing by 5 or 8 or whatever the number is that she's going to end up losing by, she would have lost by like 30 or 40 if she ran in any other context. So, and listen, again, I'm not taking a shot at you. If you believe in that approach and you want to be involved in the third party stuff, by all means, God bless. I'm happy you're fighting. I'm happy you're doing something. That's way better than doing nothing.
Third parties, are they good for organizing? Are they really? I haven't ever met an organization that believed in the third party as a model or, anything. It's always been groups that are within the Democratic Party, but also separate. So like the DSA and other grassroots organizations. I've never seen like an independent third party ever do anything good to influence politics and to change anything for anybody. I mean, I guess you could say like mutual aid, but that's not even a third party thing. That's like a organization. That's like a volunteer org thing. It's not a real political third party that's pressuring anybody. No third party in America is ever going to have enough pull to really pressure the two main parties, especially from this point forward. We're more partisan now than we've been in history with Republicans and Democrats. In order to think third parties are viable. You literally need to be ignoring everything about the real world. Like, you literally do need to just not understand literally anything when it comes to being politically viable to win elections. And if you believe like climate change is a big issue, and we need we need universal health care, and we need a new deal, and we need to make sure the world doesn't die from COVID, then going third party is basically throwing in the towel.
But don't kid yourself about the efficacy of doing that. If you want to be honest about fighting on that front, you have to say this is a
Didn't MPP do the march for M4A? The march for M4A was done by like 10 people. And they spent their time yelling at the squad more than they did actual healthcare advocacy. I'm sure there were some good people doing it, but the people in charge of that entire organization are terrible, and the people who led the marches are terrible. I'm sure there's some good people doing it, like, hey, I want universal healthcare. That's not effective. I mean, I want to be nice, but that's not like, I don't know.
multi-decade project at the minimum. So at least be honest about that. So, but bottom line, guys, I don't want anybody pointing fingers at anybody else in response to this, because the fact of the matter is, even though there were minor changes that Nina could have made, save more of the money towards the end.
Big ad campaigns. A big ad campaign on Facebook with a lot of like pro universal healthcare media would be great. A lot of comparing America to other countries for healthcare, with data points and everything, giving people arguments in favor of universal healthcare. That would go so far in pushing the idea that universal healthcare should be a thing in America. I think that's really what we need. We need to be dominating Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. We have no room to grow currently on Facebook. We need to take advantage of that website, because the political right has taken over that wild, wild west we call the Book of Face. And we need to be able to use that to our advantage. That'll do more than a bunch of people just chanting Medicare for all in the streets. That type of activism isn't really that effective. That does work for like social justice and everything. But for Medicare for all, it's hard, because there's never going to be a big point where things are going to be terrible without universal healthcare. Like, for example, for BLM and social justice, you're going to have things like George Floyd happen, which we can rally around and push for reforms with. But Medicare for all, there's never going to be a big bang to the system, because the system is designed to self-perpetuate in many ways. So it's a very difficult thing to crack.
Negative ads. There were little tweaks she could have made. The fact of the matter is, she did almost everything she could have done.
Am I a fan of Destiny? Yeah, I like his content.
7% of the stuff she did was totally correct.
Do I like Twitch Destiny? Yeah. Do I like Twitter Destiny? Nobody likes Twitter Destiny.
And she ran a phenomenal campaign. She even was able to get, endorsements of people who are in Ohio state politics. She had groups who came in and endorsed her. She had these big campaign rallies. So she did everything right. The fact of the matter is, big money buys elections, and big money bought this election. It's that simple. A colossal infusion of corporate cash at the end buried Nina Turner. It was big money plus well-timed lies blanketing the airwaves. And the other thing they were able to do is pull those partisan strings. Pull those partisan strings for these old school partisan Democrats.
Well, consider this BAM. So, money in politics matters a lot in the policymaking process. Not even for politicians in elections when it comes to winning or losing elections, but lobbyists. So, lobbyists have a job, and that job is to make sure people's needs are felt, whether that be a union lobbyist or a corporate lobbyist. One of the big issues in lobbying today isn't lobbying in general. So a lot of progressives think lobbying in general is an evil, scary word, but lobbyists do an important job. A union's needs wouldn't be met whatsoever if they didn't have somebody to deliver the message and to talk to politicians. You need a representative to do that. But the big issue is there's an imbalance of like labor and capital, and of people power versus corporate power with even lobbying. So a corporate lobbyist has a lot more money to spend, and they can direct a lot more funds to different areas. So for me, somebody who cares about policy, I don't like it that somebody can walk in from either a teachers union or even like a nonprofit, and that person's going to get overpowered by a lobbyist that has a lot more money behind them from maybe like a big tech company or an oil company. That's what I don't like. That's one relation with money in politics that I don't like. I don't think that imbalance should be there. When it comes to elections, I think it all needs to be completely transparent. If anything, if you donate anything that's a large sum of money, I think the idea that we cap individual contributions but not contributions through like super PACs, I think is really dumb. I think it should all just be made public. There should be some base of public funding, I think. So how I would do it is there is a base of public funding that you can get, but if you take over a certain amount from PAC money, then you no longer have access to the public funding at that point. So let's say you take a couple $1 million from a super PAC, you can no longer access public funding or something like that. A system that can even out a little bit more the relation between capital and the interests of other people, because we are entering a system in which capital, and I hate using the word capital. I'm not a socialist, but we do have a system where corporations have too much power over where the economic system goes, in my opinion.
And that ad talking about
No, I'm gonna call you BAM.
Nina saying voting for Biden's like eating a bowl of shit, even though it's misleading, even though it's taken out of context, even though they're effectively lying. That's one of the reasons why she lost, because it worked. When you repeatedly smeared her with that over and over and over and over and over, run it in the ads, a lot of older Democrats were like, she's not a good Democrat, and their partisan tribal loyalty started kicking in. And that's a problem. There's two ways to approach that. Either you work on the long-term project of getting people to be less partisan. That's what I've chosen to do on this show. I want people to think for themselves and not have blind loyalty to anything or anybody. So that's one way to approach this. That's a long-term project, admittedly, but that's the path I've chosen because I think it's true and I think we should fight for the truth. The other strategy that some people might want to consider is you can still hold on to all of your same policy beliefs. You could still have the exact kind of fight that we need in order to get the change that we need. And
no, they should lobby our politicians. Our policies that come out for, even like I said, teachers, education, childcare, all that stuff is done because of lobbyists. Public lobbyists as well are a big factor. Lobbying is necessary in a representative democracy, in a republic or whatever. Like we currently have. Lobbying is an evil word. It's known as an evil word, but it's not really lobbying that's the issue. It's how it's currently done.
You basically change nothing about your agenda, but you just reel it in a little bit with the vituperative, over-the-top criticisms that would stoke the partisan loyalty and the tribalism. So there's only two ways you can really approach that.
No, a teachers union typically doesn't have as much money as like a big company would to get a politician's interest.
And it's on each individual candidate to determine what they want to do.
Or even
but,
pull.
You know, it is what it is. And I feel even a little weird making this criticism or giving this breakdown because if they're going to lie about you anyway, it doesn't really matter, you know? And that's what they did is they lied about her. And it's not like if she said the right thing or she didn't say that somehow they wouldn't have come up with some bullshit to smear her with an ad. Of course they would. So ultimately, again, it comes back to the very simple point that money still buys elections. It was corporate cash infusion.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good enough. I don't know if I'm going to put this up as a video. It wasn't good at all. This was terrible. I performed bad today. Okay, the funny thing. I want to look at the funny thing. This channel. Man, love this channel. I did not watch this. My phone must have been on. This I wanted to watch. He clipped it for me. I'm gonna steal it from him. But if someone is able to galvanize more support in an election and make money, they should be able to use that to their advantage. So if you're running for like, I don't know, if you're running for the state house of Pennsylvania, you should be able to win because the Democratic Party of Israel, the Democratic majority in Israel donates to your campaign. So like if I have that one big organization that isn't anywhere near me, donate to my campaign, I should have more power in that campaign than a person who raised all their money from within the district. I don't think that makes sense. I think that inherently leads to bad policy if you're going to have that much of an inverse relationship, unless if you want both candidates to be shopping around wherever they can get the most money from. So it's like a competition to whoever's interests wins out, and hopefully unions can step in somehow. I think there should just be more regulations on lobbying. That's a complicated discussion though. This is funny. Okay. So this is interesting, and the Progressive Voice was kind enough to clip it out for me. So let's watch Kyle Kulinski to see why he got kicked off of the Bernie Sanders interview that Crystal did with him.
So this episode is a little bit bittersweet for me because I love the fact that you got to talk to Bernie, and
I
I
got
have
turned
full
up.
faith
One
and confidence
second.
in your abilities. I know you're going to do an amazing job. But I'm not in this interview, and there's a reason why I'm not in this interview. So, I mean, you could probably give the timeline better than me, but they reached out to you and basically said, yeah, we'll do an interview under the condition it's only you. Correct?
Yes. So that was that. We actually didn't reach out to them.
See,
I mean,
you say that, but I feel like months ago you did reach out to them and invite them. And
That
then now,
is-
like months later, they finally responded and they were like, sure, but only you.
I actually can't. You're probably right because
I'm
probably
almost certainly right.
at the beginning of the podcast, I
Yes.
probably did reach out to them, but it has been that request
been
has
months,
long
yes.
expired. So they reached out. The senator was very frustrated with the media not asking him a single decent question. So I think they wanted to have a place where they thought they'd get a more substantive discussion. I've interviewed him a couple times before, and for whatever reason, that was the very first thing they led with when they reached out to me was like, want to do this interview, but really want it to be just you. They were also kind of open on whether it would live here or with breaking points. So it wasn't just you that they didn't want. It was also Sagar
Well,
that they
you
didn't
made-
want.
You made it seem like it was relatively non-negotiable that they wanted to talk to you.
That was
it was
definitely
it was like
my-
a hard line kind of
That
like,
was-
sure, we'll do it, but this is the condition.
Yes.
Yes. So, you know, am I butthurt over that? Yes. I'm very butthurt over that. I mean, I supported Bernie more than anybody in 2016, more than anybody in 2020. I got him on Joe Rogan. That's, you know, you could talk to Fahd Shakir, his campaign manager. I'm the one who set all that up.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fair.
to sort of be thrown under the bus in a way, and whether it's Sagar or me, I mean, Sagar, he'll even tell you he's more Bernie's ideological enemy than I am.
Yeah.
And so to be somebody who's more ideologically aligned with him and supported him as much as I did, and for him to just be like, I'm going to kick you off your own show, that stung. I didn't like that. I was talking to Korn about it, and he was like, really? Why would he do that? I was like, I don't fucking know. So you tell me. I mean, your theory was like, oh, it's just he likes you, and so he wants to do it with only you. My theory's more, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to involve me or Sagar. And in the case of me, maybe it's because I called him a cuck repeatedly.
It could be.
If he saw that.
Could be.
But I kind of doubt he saw that. You know what I mean?
I honestly, I mean, it's very
Okay, dude. This is what I talk about, or this is what I mean when I talk about connections mattering. You can't just like say a bunch of dumb stuff about everybody, and you can't make everybody hate you, because either somebody that knows you or somebody that knows you that knows somebody is going to know about that thing, and you are going to burn a lot of bridges without you even knowing it. You need to be smart about who you criticize and how you criticize them. And if you say something about like Bernie Sanders, even without calling him like a cuck or whatever, calling Bernie Sanders a spineless politician who either is too dumb or doesn't care enough about the issues to fight for them, saying that about a man that you supported so much shows immaturity at best and a complete ignorance at worst. So like you can't be surprised when you're on a show and that person's team comes in. So Bernie's team comes in and says basically to Crystal, hey, we want you to do an interview with Bernie. Bernie wants independent media. But Kyle Kulinski and Sagar, we do not want them. I'm sorry.
very hard to say what the behind the scenes looks like. I honestly would be surprised if it was like personal to you or personal to Sagar. I think it was more. I mean, this is I have no idea, right? All I know is that it was presented to me as like,
Dude, this sounds like when something good happens to you and you're talking about it with a friend that's having a really bad week or like a bad life, and you try to make it sound so like toned down, like it's not that good. I'm sure there was a misunderstanding. You're gonna be back on your feet someday, dude. Oh my god, Crystal is trying to like do this as softly as possible, but Kyle is so mad.
we want to
I'd
do
be
this
mad. I
interview and give you a good.
I mean,
chunk of
I'd be
time.
mad, but then to be fair, I would never be that dumb to talk like that about anybody. I don't. It's funny.
All I
don't
know
dude.
is that it was presented to me as like, we want to do this interview and give you a good chunk of time, but we want it to be a one-on-one, and like that's a stipulation. So they were open on which platform, they were open on how we promote it. You know, you'll see the conversation, like it's definitely not a softball interview, and it's wide-ranging and all that stuff. So they were open on all of those pieces, came in the studio, which I also appreciated because it makes for a better conversation. But that was like the one thing they were hard on, is it needs to be one-on-one.
The other possibility, like you pointed out, I don't know how much I buy this, but the other possibility is that maybe his manager or
His
agent
comms
or
guy,
his comms
yeah.
person doesn't like me or Sagar and was like, we just want it to be only you.
But people who barely support Bernie, it's okay to have Bernie on their show? Yeah, because he'll go on CNN or MSNBC because he's talking to millions of people and he's talking to voters that might be swayed to his side. He's not going into an online like circle party where they're all like just I don't want to use any bad references, any explicit references, but they're having a big party where they're all congratulating each other. We can call it that. There's so many negatives about like Kyle Kulinski in this experience or in this position that would make, you know, if you have a high profile politician, it would make him kind of wary to do an interview with like a Kyle Kulinski or whatever. Do I like that? I mean, realistically, in a better world, probably not. But independent media, just because we like independent media and we don't like CNN and MSNBC because they're dishonest in different ways, independent media is still bad in many other metrics. Kyle has a lot of disinformation on his show and everything. And even without that, it's not even tone policing. I think, and
So
they're going to
that's
compare
another
him to Joe Rogan in a little bit, but like even Joe Rogan is probably less of a threat or less of a liability than Kyle is.
possibility.
Or or knows that the senator has a certain like knows who I am. I know he knows who you are too, but had, you know, a certain comfort
Well,
level with
he
me
had
or
been-
whatever, and just had me in mind.
So he was on my show during the campaign.
yeah.
And that was more, I think what happened there was Fahd Shakir, the campaign manager, I set up the Rogan interview, and then they felt like the right thing to do is to give Kyle an interview. I didn't even ask for an interview because I didn't do interviews then. So I didn't even really want an interview, but they were like, do an interview because
Oh,
like, basically like,
interesting.
let me pay you back. for
Very
the
true. Much better than Jimmy Dore yet again.
Rogan
We're
thing.
getting you the Rogan.
Yeah.
thing.
And so, you know, the one thing, yeah, this is obvious. Everybody will know this, but they gave me 15 minutes and it was like in out quick interview. I asked like 4 fucking questions.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Especially because he's not a short-winded person.
yeah. So
and
you
he's
just get
hard
the sense.
to,
But
hard to
that's
cut
that's
off.
the thing that's a little frustrating is that you do get the sense that it's sort of look down his nose at certain people. And I think he does have this contradictory belief where he talks all the time about, oh, we love independent media and we want independent media to grow. And it's like, well, all the people who were part of the Justice Democrats and were in the squad were more than happy to go on all these left-wing shows when we were helping them get elected. And now that they are elected and now that they're not really fulfilling their mission, it's like all of a sudden when we get tiny bit critical of them, gone. And so it's like you don't really actually
Maybe there are a couple correlations here. So whenever a politician graduates to real politics and they learn about real politics and they start having to deal with real issues and real policy making, right when they do that, Kyle Kulinski no longer likes them. He thinks they are like sellouts. He thinks they are not fulfilling their mission, and they stop wanting to go on independent media. There might be a correlation there between getting into the game where you are influencing things and helping people versus when you are like an up and comer and you need to use independent media to rise up. And I think as independent media who you know, they care about progressivism and progressive politicians and all that stuff, I think you should be glad to do that in this world. The issue is their worldview is so like lacking of what's actually happening in government and in reality. So it's like they're gonna be mad about like Bernie Sanders or AOC, you know, what they do in government, or if they don't come on independent media shows anymore. So it's really interesting.
want a thriving independent media because that actually does mean more tough questions for you and you're willing to dismiss or overlook or not pay attention to and not go on any of the shows that were huge supporters of you. So I kind of think it's bullshit. Right-wing media always has right-wing politicians and they feed each other, they echo each other's arguments, and there's like a bond there. And on the left, I mean, that's not the case. But you know what? At this point, I should really stop complaining because the fact of the matter is I don't want to have any sort of relationship with any of these people, you know, whether it's politicians, whether it's other people in the media space. I mean, I've seen what happens in the past and recently with stuff like that. And it's like, it's just a drain and it's a waste and it's mental energy wasted and it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, I think why it's important is because there's 2 ways for media to really matter and have an impact, which is, you know, the goal of media is to matter and have an impact ultimately. One is just to have a large audience, right? Which you have. The other, though, is you have to have sort of like elite awareness of what's going on in that space if you're looking to influence policymakers and the people who, you know, run this country and run the world. And so it helps a lot in that latter category to have people like Bernie Sanders or AOC or any member of Congress who, is going on those platforms and sort of bridging that divide between alternative media and these elite spaces, because otherwise they pretend like the large audiences don't exist. They pretend like the whole space and genre and whatever is like irrelevant and doesn't exist at all, even as we get higher views than CNN or higher views than MSNBC or whatever. So that's part of why I think it matters, this conversation about whether left politicians are actually engaging with these spaces.
Yeah. So what I want to do is we'll have the interview here, and then I want to respond to it, break it down, get your thoughts on it, and then also, I'll tell everybody, had I been there, which I wanted to be there, had I been there, the questions I would have asked.
Well, we also should say you gave me that list of questions beforehand, too, of things that you were thinking of. And I think there are a lot of things that either you or I were interested in and would have asked, but definitely informed the interview, some of the things that you sent. So
that's why ultimately, I'm not going to lie to everybody. My initial reaction when I was told he wants to come on your show but kick you off, my reaction was like, fuck him. No, I don't want him on the show. How about that? That was my initial reaction. But when I'm not as emotional and I'm a little more calm and rational about it, yes, you think through it and you realize, number one, you're a phenomenal interviewer and you're going to ask great questions. And number two, yeah, I could write down a bunch of questions that I would have asked.
No, I think Kyle's handling it pretty well. Like, to be completely honest, if that happened to me, I'd be upset. Albeit I would never say anything like that. Like Kyle said, I'd be smarter than that. I don't think he should be surprised, though. With all he said about Bernie, based off of, like, no evidence, it's political commentary, and he went really, really bad with it, in what he has claimed about the man, the myth, the legend, Bernie Sanders. So I'm not really surprised about it. I don't know.
And give you the list, and you can determine which you think are fair and which
And,
ones
like,
you
look at Crystal Ball, somebody who has connections in media, somebody who has kept a decent reputation in progressive media, somebody who has never went that far against, like, Bernie or whatever. She does some edgy content on her show, both with Rising and Breaking Points, but she never has said anything as dumb and disconnected and immature as Kyle Kulinski said, even if I think some of her takes are wrong. She is somebody who understands to an extent, like, I need to make sure I maintain these connections. That is a big deal. That is important. And I think that shows in her political analysis. I think she is probably the most reasonable out of, like, Kulinski, Jimmy Dore, her and Brianna Joy Gray and that whole bunch. I think she is probably the most accurate in what she says about the world. Maybe based off of that. Maybe because she is older, so maybe that plays into it.
Yeah, I could write down a bunch of questions that I would have asked and give you the list, and you can determine which you think are fair and which ones you think maybe aren't, and then you'll
What kind of cat? I don't know cats.
Incorporate that into your questions. So even though I'm not there, I am some percentage there because some of the questions were inspired by some of the things that I showed you. So,
no doubt about it.
When I'm more calm and rational about it, yes, we ended up doing what is the right thing, and you sat down and you interviewed him. But yes, I'm not going to lie, the irrational lizard part of my brain was like, he can go fuck himself. You're not coming on my show and kicking me off. Fuck out of here.
Fair.
So you guys just saw it there. I actually wasn't even able to play the full clip just because it's too long, but the various things that he says in there, he has different hypotheses as to what exactly went down. Now, those hypotheses range from, was it maybe him that didn't want him to interview? Was it Bernie Sanders that didn't want Kyle to interview him? Was it his media team? Why did his media team potentially not want him to interview him? So apparently what they said there was Bernie had reached out to Crystal.
All right. That was funny. Or not funny. It was interesting. Okay, there's something else I wanted to make a video about. Did Jimmy Dore say anything yet? Let's see. Did Jimmy Dore say anything about this? Jimmy Dore. I want to see all the reactions. It's funny. No, stop it, Jimmy. No. Yeah, I don't think so. Is Biden worse for the environment than Trump? False. No. What are some good channels for this stuff? What if I just look up Nina Turner?
What is this?
This here is me homunculus flesh puppet that me soul will transfer to in the event of me death. It's got no soul inside of it right now, so we keep it in a constant state of euphoria to keep it from massacring me customers.
Okay. Why won't he come on my show? What the hell? I guess I should do, where is that one about? Oh, yeah. All right. Everybody that's here for Kyle Kulinski and Jimmy Dore, goodbye. Oh, did Vanguard talk about it? I don't care enough to make a video about Vanguard, though. If I had all their endorsements, I'd be large.
How's it going?
Wild. Ah.
Obviously, everyone knows what.
They had some high-profile interviews. No, nothing cool.
Days.
Vosh is reviewing his debate at 8 o'clock. I'll be watching that. I will be getting off at 8, so that's a perfect time to watch the Voosh back. Your message was deleted. What did it say? What did your message... Why did the Google moderation team delete your message? Here's the Discord link, if anybody wants it. Thank you all for hanging out. What's up, Kyle? Pin message. Orange Tabby. Thanks, Howard. She lost by 4,000 votes. Low voter turnout. Interesting. So Newt Gingrich is on Fox talking about the Great Replacement Theory, the idea that white people are being replaced in America.
Look, they don't come all the way across Mexico for the purpose of visiting for 2 days. They want to be in America, and I think what's hard for most of us to accept is that the anti-American left would love to drown traditional classic Americans with as many
Traditional classic Americans.
people as they can who know nothing of American history, nothing of American tradition, nothing of the rule of law. And I think that when you go and you look at the radical left, this is their ideal model, is to get rid of the rest of us because we believe in George Washington or we believe in the Constitution.
The rest of us, I guarantee he knows nothing about George Washington or about the Constitution. His evaluations of American history are probably extremely flawed. It's really interesting to see all of these Republican leaders adopt things like the Great Replacement Theory so quickly. With like Trump, they moved all the way to the right, like the far right, so in such a rapid manner. And I think one of the reasons for this is rapid social change towards like social liberation. So there's always a reaction to progress, and I think that's why so many Republicans are okay with this new line of thinking, this more radical far right line of thinking, because whenever there's rapid social change, people feel uncomfortable. So a lot of white people are being told in our country to be fearful of like black people, of immigrants, of different languages, of different cultures. They're being told their culture is being taken away. That's why Donald Trump's "Make America Great," I can't talk. "Make America Great Again" was so successful. And it's really fun, right? So I have to go convince all of my poor white neighbors that immigrants are not coming to kill them. Their jobs were not stolen by immigrants. Black people are not dangerous. I have to convince them of that. I have to make sure they know that Donald Trump is not on their side. And among other things. Newt Gingrich, baby. Where's Cuomo at? Cuomo released a weird video about his Cuomo increasingly desperate to shift focus back onto nursing home deaths. Oh my goodness. New York Democrats are drawing up articles of impeachment for Governor Andrew Cuomo. So after this new evidence came out of Cuomo's sexual assault, he released a video, a really weird video
trying to disprove the really strong evidence. Does anybody have it by chance? I don't know if I shared it or not. It was a video of him like hugging people. Wait, this.
I would let the process unfold.
This guy made money off a book titled How I Solved the Pandemic as the pandemic was hitting its worst point this winter. As millions of people around the world were dying, as thousands were dying in New York, he was putting on his reality TV star face, talking about how he is the savior from COVID. And in order to disprove his sexual assault allegations, this is what he released. I don't know where it is in the video. It needs to load. But I guess he's trying to justify it with the way he interacts with people on a normal basis.
And for that,
Where is it?
Are not.
Does anybody have the? Oh, they have a
my
slideshow
father,
somewhere.
and there's nothing dynamics.
Somebody
and
put
my
all of the
family's-
slideshows together of him like touching people or kissing people. I need to find it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Twitter has been buffering. Big tech is coming to shut us down. They're on Cuomo's side. Guess I can't find it. Cuomo. Sexual assault. Allegations. Okay, if I can't find these, I'm just gonna get off. Yeah, I can't find it. GG. Alright, good night. Enjoy the Vosh Charlie Kirk debate review that he's gonna do. I can't find it anywhere. Basically, Governor Cuomo said, I touch everybody like that. I grab everybody's face and pinch their cheeks. And it shows a bunch of, it shows a slideshow of Cuomo going around and doing that to literally everybody, like cupping their face with both of his hands and like touching their cheeks and like kissing their foreheads and everything. So his excuse is, since I do this to literally everybody, that means I never assaulted anyone. Because I do this to everybody. Old men, young boys, he said. I don't know. He said powerful people he does it to. So like... Alright, good night, y'all. The Discord link is pinned to the top of the chat. Super buff right now. Look at that cat back there cleaning himself. Oh, yes. Yes. Num num num. Num 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 num. Num 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 num. See you again another till I see you again. Till I see you again. Whoa.